welcome to the Red Gauge Podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. It helps out the show a ton. Today, we have Steve Amrine on the show. He's been coaching football for more than 20 years, and we're really excited to have him on to talk a little bit about what it's like to coach a group of kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. It means a lot to us.
Yeah. So, I got the name to bring Coach Amrine this year. Before the season started, I was my first year as a head coach, and he was coaching a clinic down at, where were we at? WF West in Chehalis.
Yeah.
And just the first week, we were only able to meet for a small amount of time after that. But I was like, man, this guy, he knows what he's doing. Great, not only a great presenter of facts, but then also just you could tell the love of coaching and like the brotherhood of coaching. I just really enjoyed it. And once we started doing these podcasts, you're one of the names I was like, yeah, we got to have him on. It would be not only good for kids, but I think this is going to be a really good episode for coaches. But
yeah, so you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into sport?
Well, yeah, Josh and Kyle, first of all, thank you guys for having me on, and any chance we get to talk and share, I think it's cool. I think that's one of the things that got me into the profession, and it started at a really young age. My dad and my uncle were both coaches, and my mom coached for 40 years as well, too. And so I grew up in a sports family, if you will, and my uncle ended up being in the Washington State Hall of Fame. He coached at Castle Rock High School for a long time, and my dad was his offensive coordinator. And so from an early age, we knew that was what we're going to do. And through all the people we met and all the exciting times we got to go through that, he just said, that's how I want to make a living and spend my life. And then I had a big goal and a big plan to go coach college football. I really fell in love with that and thought of that. And I had a great high school career playing wise, and wasn't good enough to go play college or big enough or tall enough and all that fun stuff. But I wanted to get into coaching. And so was really lucky that my uncle had a relationship with a recruiter from Eastern Washington who ended up becoming the head coach at the University of Florida named Jim McElwain. And I was able to go over to Eastern and get my school paid for and work as a student assistant at Eastern in 93 and was able to cut my teeth in the coaching world over there to start with. And then that led on a long journey and a lot of friendships, a lot of opportunities, a lot of travel, a lot of life experiences that I would have never got if I hadn't gone over to Cheney in 93.
Yeah. I'm always really interested in how people start what they're doing. Like, what were mostly just because of the big mistakes. We all make terrible mistakes when we get into something that we've done. So, what were the big, successes and failures of starting up at Eastern and trying to help out?
Well, the first thing is, you go in there, and I'm a small town kid from Castle Rock, and you get exposed to a lot of stuff, but I got put right to work, and I thought, who knows what I would get to do when I went over there. Would I be filming? Would I be wiping footballs off? What would I be doing? And they put me right on the field, and I was able to work with the receivers with Coach Mack. The first year he was a quarterback receiver coach. The second year I got to work with Paul Wolf, who ended up being Washington State's head coach and a really good friend of mine now with the offensive line. And then the third year, working under Mike Kramer after he took over for the legend Dick Zorns at Eastern that gave me a shot. I got to coach the running backs by myself. So as a 23-year-old kid, you're over there coaching guys that are really, really good players. And so they had enough trust in me and allowed me to do that. It was really cool. And so, just putting your nose to the grindstone and doing whatever they ask you to do and being, whatever they ask you, you worked really hard and being a good person. And I think that resonated and allowed me to make a lot of connections so far in that room.
What position did you play in high school?
I was a quarterback at Castle Rock.
You probably knew a little bit of everything then.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. When you're the coach, when your dad's the offensive coordinator and your uncle's the head coach. But fortunately, we were really good, and I mean, we had the state's longest winning streak for a while. We had won the state title as a junior. I wasn't the starter, but then as a senior, we got beat in the semifinals, had a 24-game winning streak, and got beat in the Tacoma Dome, and so they had a great run. And obviously my uncle ended up in the High School Hall of Fame and was very involved, and dad was his right-hand guy for forever too. So
I've had a few times where I got to go compete in like a real like stadium or coliseum or whatever. How do you prepare kids for the nerves, or how are you prepared for the nerves of walking into the coming out from the the breezeway into the Tacoma Dome and being in that massive complex?
well, that was really fun at the time, because we had been and to go way back, with Dad and Uncle Tom being involved in football. We went back to the Kingdom. We used to always go up to the Kingdom and watch games. And since I was 5 or 6 years old, we'd go up on Friday night and watch the state championship games all day on Saturday there. And so cool arenas. We got to play in the Kingdom, got to play in the Tacoma Dome, and then my coaching career took me several places. I mean, we got to coach at the University of Georgia. We got to coach at Oklahoma. We got to coach at Boise State. We got to coach at Arizona State, Oregon State. Lots of places that are really really cool. So it's cool. The honest of it is awesome. But then once the ball goes up and they kick it off, then you're focused on what's going on in between the lines, and all that other stuff kind of takes second stage.
Yeah, the arena kind of disappears and you're just playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. But the few moments, and that's why when we were at places, we always tried to go to the stadium the day before, so kids and people got a chance to take the off factor out. And when you got there on game day, reality sets in and you're there to do a job and focus.
Yeah, I've never played at super big stadiums, but like we played, and then I've coached at Memorial Stadium in Seattle there, and it's a pretty big little field, but there's almost enough people in there that it's just noise. Whereas like you go play at somewhere like Rochester, and they put you on their sides, like they take the away side, and it's just like 400 people, and it's quiet enough that you could just hear like one guy be like, "Shelton, you suck." Like that's way more harsh. Like I can just hear the conversation back here. Like, damn, can we get some? There's no track or anything. It's just no separation.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Josh, the Memorial Stadium. When I first got to Kelso, we had the nice fortune of getting into playoffs, and we go up and play O'Day, and we get there and we get off the bus, and we got up a few times. We're the first game. We're the Friday night at 5 game, and our players get off the bus and go storming, running all the way up to the stand. I'm like, what is going on? And they wanted to look at the Space Needle and everything. Yeah. And we take for granted sometimes that maybe some of our kids had never been outside of Cowlitz County, and so they get to the big
underneath
city.
I mean, it's underneath the Space Needle. You're looking straight up at the Space Needle.
Exactly. You had to watch your voices there because you're right. It could echo on Friday nights when that place is empty, and so we had the nice pleasure of trying to tackle some kids that we didn't do a very good job of tackling from O'Day.
Yeah,
so
we played O'Day up at Memorial once as well. When they brought their second full-time offensive line in, their second wave of O-line, we were like, oh boy, this might be a tough night here.
Yeah, thank God Monty Kohler's a nice guy, because
he is.
He would take it.
He took it easy on us. So.
Yeah, he did. He did. So.
Yeah. So where did you end up after Eastern?
So after Eastern, I took a high school job for 2 years and worked for another legendary coach, Larry McCutcheon. But going back to the ties of how that job comes back, a guy that I met at Eastern, John Zamberlin, had played with Howard Krebs, the AD at Columbia White Salmon High School at PLU. They had played together, and so they were looking for a history teacher, assistant coach, and I went down and coached for 2 years down there and taught history, and then had the opportunity to get back into college football with Coach Z at Central, and so I jumped back into the college game after 2 years of high school, and so spent 5 years at Central. And the first season we were up there, we won the conference championship, and we were in the process of going from NAIA to Division II. So it was a really interesting change at Central, a really successful program as well. But because of my Eastern ties, I was able to end up at both of those places as this journey has taken place.
Yeah.
What years were you at White Salmon?
I think we were down at White Salmon 96 and 97. And so, yeah, we had two really good football teams. We ran into Meridian one year, and Bob Ames up at Meridian, legendary coach up there. They beat us in a game at Camas. I can remember, I think it was 15-14, and we just couldn't get anything going offensively on that day. But we had also won a playoff game up at Olympic up in the Bremerton area as well.
They had a good powerlifting team for.
Larry was a big time weights guy and did an awesome job and a super guy.
Yeah, yeah. So you made it back to Central. What was your big, obviously at Eastern, you had some time there and worked with the team and everything, and then you went to high school, and then you go back to college again. So you kind of are dipping your toes in both pools of athletes. What's the big difference, do you think, in terms of mentality for your kids that make it to college versus the ones who make it to high school,
Well, that's an awesome question, Kyle, because, it's like we talk to them, at the high school level, unless you're at Tumwater, we get one of those guys or two of those guys a year, but you're getting everybody's best at the college level. It's it's that you take the all league list and it's the top of the all league list. It's the two players of the year are maybe fortunate enough to get to go play college ball. So kids have to be really, really squared away and then really, really love the game because everybody's that good, And so to have the drive to excel at that, and you just really have to be dialed in and really love to play and continue to work at your craft because everybody's good. Everybody's the big kid. Everybody's the fast kid, as opposed to high school where those guys are the kind of the cream of the crop at the high school. You're just you're a small fish in a big pond at the college level.
Is there anything specific that you tell your kids that, correct me if I'm wrong, but your son is going to play college ball?
He's not. He's going to go work on the staff. We're trying to get him to work on the staff at Utah State. But just talking to kids in general, just, hey, you got to love it because it becomes a job. It's not just, hey, Friday night here or, this or that, or I can, I might miss weights today. It is a true job when you go to play at the next level. And I don't care if it's junior college, Division III, Division II, Division I. We've had the fortune to work at all different of those levels. And you have to absolutely love it and love the grind and want to do it because it's a long season and it's becoming even longer now as we see in college football. And that goes for any college sports,
Yeah.
Right. That's one thing we talk about kids is, especially with the transfer portal, and it seems like the ever-extending amount of years kids can play college athletics. Not only do you need to love it, and you are probably no longer going to be the best kid, you might not see the field for a while. You're probably getting redshirted, and then even after that, you'll probably be behind a transfer or two. So, you got to have this mentality to grind for years just to get yourself back on the field. And I think that in itself is probably just as special as the physical attributes you need just to be on a college football field.
Well, we have a kid right now at Michigan State, Peyton Stewart, who that kind of the same thing you just talked about. And he had a knee injury coming out of high school, but he was going to go to Northwestern. That got blown up in a coaching deal back there. Then he was going to go to Oregon State, and the Oregon State staff took the Michigan State job, and now he's at Michigan State, had knee surgery, is grinding through it, and we're super proud of him because he's going to eventually get to that field, but it's going to be a long grind to get there. He's just now up and going. So, but again, that was he's playing for Jim Mahalchuk, who I had met at Eastern, who was at Montana State. So. When Jim came to recruit Peyton, it was like, oh gosh, coach, I didn't know you were here. And Peyton's like, you know everybody, Steve. So I said, well, we've been around a while. So.
Yeah. So at Central for a few years, any big takeaways from your time at Central? Was there anything that was transformative in how you approached the game?
Well, just, I got to be with Coach Zamberlin and he is a really attention to detail, great guy, and he kind of taught me that philosophy. He had worked for a lot of guys of being demanding on people, but not being a jerk about doing it. And I think that's one of the greatest takeaways and something I've always tried to kind of hang my hat on, or how my career's gone, and almost, just life in general too. As a leader, you can be demanding without, being a jerk. You don't have to be make people feel bad or anything, but you can be demanding, and you'll get more out of them that way. But no, just loved my time at Central. We had, got to work with a guy named Bo Baldwin and John Pica, who were awesome people there, and got to meet Josh Fetter and Brian Stranley, a couple defensive guys that we ended up crossing paths with again, and all the people in Ellensburg were really cool. They're doing a great job there now as well too, and we stay in touch with those guys as well. Coach Fisk does an awesome job.
Yeah, you. I lost my train of thought there.
That's all right.
It happens sometimes.
Not to me. Never.
Not to you. You're invincible.
Yep.
I've had too many concussions.
I don't think I got on the field enough.
No. Oh, okay. I got it. We're back. You mentioned, like being demanding without being cruel. And I think that's a really important takeaway for anybody who's involved in sport, because the reason we stay in it is because of the emotional reward. Like, you don't get paid enough to want to do this in most of the positions that you're going to serve. Like, you gotta work hard enough that you see the effect, and you gotta enjoy the effect, right? Like, those are the tools, right?
Oh, no question. And you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, Kyle, because I got to spend last night, a good portion of last night, with a former student athlete of mine who now works for a big financial firm up in Seattle, and we went back and talked about a lot of old games and stuff. But to see kids do well, and be able to get to see kids in a different light, and the respect they have for us and we have for them, is probably the most rewarding thing there is. And to watch kids have success, and to hear people talk about, hey, God, your impact, made a difference in my life, or allowed me to hopefully take some carryaways from what they learned playing ball or being around us to be successful in life.
Yeah, so if you're in a leadership position, if you're an administrator or athletic director or a head coach, you got to be real careful that however much pressure you're putting on the scale, you're not outweighing the pros. And sometimes it takes a long time to get the juice out of that squeeze. Like, there's been kids I've worked with for a long time and was like, man, this is killing me. And then when they finally pull their head out of their ass and start doing stuff right, it's like, oh, thank God. And it's like, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it, but it's hard sometimes.
Oh, for sure. And you don't necessarily see it until over a time period. And a lot of times also, we may never know the impact, because, a kid leaves and he's gone and he's living his life. But then you'll hear some stories like, you might not even have known what you said to a kid, but those words impacted that kid. Just a short hi in the hallway, or how you're doing, that guy said hi to me every day, and we don't even realize what we're doing. So that's always one of the things when I would start with my staff in the fall. We'd always have our opening meeting, and I just said, be really careful with our words, because what we say impacts a kid 10 times more than we even know. And I'm guilty of that myself. I've hollered at kids during practice, and then I got back to the locker room and go, oh man, he could have interpreted it that way, and I didn't. You didn't mean that, but you always made it a point to talk to the kid. And I always said that if you get on a kid on the practice field, make sure by the time he gets to the locker room, you picked him up, because we don't know what kind of day they've had. We don't know what kind of home life they're going to. And our words are very, very impactful.
Yeah, I always try, even if sometimes I'm just the one in the wrong. Maybe I'm having a bad day or something and I have a blow up. But even if I believe that the whole situation was them, they were absolutely wrong, and something bad happened, words were exchanged, I always try to not only apologize, but at least somewhat publicly. So they get the kids around them get to see as well, oh, there's a man that's owning up to blowing up on a kid, because that's also good for the kids to learn, is listen, life is just so much easier if you don't let that linger. Don't let that just ruin a relationship forever. We got mad at each other, we blew up, let's squash it right now, and then guess what? Tomorrow we're back to laughing and telling jokes together,
I really think that's the human element of it, right? You know, if they see you with your guard down, and you can't always, but if they see you with your guard down and you're human and you're willing to admit a mistake, then kids are like, you know, this guy or this person, now when he does get on me or is asking for something, you know, he does have my best interest at heart.
Yeah, and you'd be amazed at how often kids aren't getting that. Like, I know I chewed a kid out one time because I misunderstood what was happening. And then I realized that I misunderstood, and I was like, oh, geez, I'm sorry, that was my mistake. And she's like, no, no, I should have handled it better. And I was like, no, that was my mistake. You don't apologize to me. I'm the one who screwed it up. You're not in the wrong. You know, like, I messed that up. And she came up to me like an hour later, and she was like, I didn't know how to deal with that because no adults ever apologized to me before. And, you know, like, so like as a coach, you get those opportunities that you don't, you know, that they may not see that. They may never see that modeled, you know. And if they don't see it modeled, they're not probably going to do it when they grow up.
Oh, for sure. There's no question. And you know, working for a guy like Coach Zamberlin that I got to be around 9 years, he had a huge impact on my career because he was really that type of person. I mean, he played in the National Football League. He didn't have to take a chance on a kid out of Castle Rock, and he also, you know, circling back, he also took me with him to Idaho State, and so I mean he kept us around for 9 years, and so he's a pretty special and important person in my life.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the step after Central?
So then we jumped on an absolutely intriguing experience. We went down and started a football program. I went down as an assistant with Rob Cushman. He was at Eastern Oregon. He had been let go. He took a job at Feather River College, community college in Quincy, California, and we started a football program from scratch down there. And then my wife, she had played basketball at Central, and she went down and was an assistant girls basketball coach down there. So we traveled to Quincy, California, which is like you're 70 miles from Reno, Nevada, and about 3 hours from Sacramento, California, up in the high Sierras, and we're going to start a college football program. And it was absolutely really unique and really cool. We brought in like 60 kids from Vegas and Reno and into this small town. I'm trying to think, you know, it'd be like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Vader, Washington, but it'd be like putting a junior college in Vader, Washington, but boy, these kids could play and run, and we went to 5 straight bowl games in California and had an awesome run there. But it was unique in the fact of where we were located and what we were able to accomplish down there. And we spent 5 years down there, and it was really fun, but it was really interesting and a lot of work.
So you guys started off, you just happened to get some kids, you started off pretty hot there? Because like, right away I thought it would be like, just you're like, you would drive into the local skate park, like, listen, it's Friday night, we need somebody, come on, let's go. Like,
oh, it was unique because we had like the WUI or you know, an exchange from the Nevada to California to get kids there, and we started a program with 60 freshmen. And so the first year we were 6-4 and went to a bowl game because you had to qualify, you had to have a winning record to qualify for a bowl game down there, and we played in the lowest division. But then the beauty of it was these kids were really talented. I mean, these were really talented kids out of Las Vegas. We had some athletes that could run and tackle and throw and do everything you needed to do, and they really enjoyed playing. Now we didn't always like going to school and doing a lot of other stuff, but they really enjoyed playing. So we were busy all the time, and the second year now you have 60. The majority of the kids stayed, so now you have 58 to 60 sophomores, and we went 9-1 and played in a real high bowl game there, and then we're able to have a nice foundation and did a good job and continued to go to bowl games down there. So that was awesome because you started from scratch and everybody kind of was like, oh, these guys can't be any good, and boy, we were really fast and really good. So it was fun. People kind of got a little jealous of us pretty fast because we had success.
I was saying, my wife played college volleyball, but she went to a really, really small Christian college, and she's kind of tall. And they were like, we don't have enough people. Can you play on the team? And then, like, the first game they played was, like, the Evergreen State College, like, Division I volleyball. And she's like, Like she's like, I suck. What is going on here? Why am I on this team?
How was that recruiting experience for you? Like, was it a lot of home visits and stuff? Did you really have to pound pavement to recruit that first group of kids?
Well, coach and the dean of students. I mean, basically the reason we were brought into that school was to up enrollment. And as you see with a lot of Division threes and a lot of schools, a lot of the reason the athletic programs are in place is financially. So we had a clause in our contract that we had to have 45 or 50 kids, and so yeah, we traveled all over the place, and we had a few locals, but you couldn't survive with just kids from that little area around there. And so there was no junior college football in Nevada. And so we were able to, I recruited Reno, and coach went down and did Vegas. And then, obviously we hit California in the local areas, but you home visited, you school visited, you got coaches on your side. It was an opportunity to get kids. And then you had to do a good job with the kids you got, because if you didn't go back into a high school or the kid come back and said the place sucks and I was treated terrible, then coaches get, leery and rightfully so of sending their kids to play for you. So building up that trust of those kids coming over and having a good experience was good. But we found out some, really interesting things, because kids go to junior college for a variety of reasons. Number one, grades, that they don't have the grades to get into a big school. Number two, they're not big enough, fast enough, strong enough to get into another school. Number three, they're not mature enough to handle everyday life at a 4-year school. And but a lot of kids, the level they were recruited at high school is how they're going to go out of there. We had a few really cool stories. We had a kid that was in the Pentagon on 9/11, a very mature kid that came and played for us that ended up going to Texas A&M. So he was one of our greatest success stories in Utah, and he's gone on to have a great career down in Texas as a business guy. And so, all sorts of junior college football was all walks of life. So
Yeah, it's interesting how you get different points that you get to, like, if you're coaching, in the NFL, right? Maybe you are focused more on performance, and when you're coaching at the high school, you're focused more on making good kids. And so, like everywhere that you go, you have a big, like, there's a shift in terms of, what the outcomes are that you get to work towards, and who the population is that you serve. I was always really curious about coaching at junior college for how often you get the late bloomers who turn out to be real monsters, because we've sent a couple of those out of our programs where they went somewhere small and then turned into a monster when they were 19 or 20 or 21.
Well, and that was the case with Mark Dodge, who ended up playing at Texas A&M. He came out of high, like Fernley High School or one of those small Nevada schools, Fallon maybe, I'm not sure which one, but he came out like at 185, 190 pound and tried to go to the University of Nevada, Reno, and they told him no. and then it was funny because the University of Nevada, Reno came back in on him after he developed into this 24-year-old man. And they're like, "Oh, we really like him, coach." And we're like, "Well, he doesn't like you guys now. So he's going to go to Texas A&M." And so, those stories happen, and it's going to be really interesting now to see with this new legislation, junior colleges, it doesn't count against your NC2A clock. So it'll be, like you guys were talking about earlier, how long kids can stay and play in college. Now a kid technically all the junior colleges have basically become prep schools. So
Right.
Yeah. How do you think that's going to play out?
well, it's already and Josh can probably talk about it a little bit too. How much are colleges going to recruit the high schools now, as opposed to, if you're not a 5-star or a 4-star, it used to be the Huskies and Cougars would take their pick, then Eastern would take their pick, then Central would take their pick, and then the Division threes would come through, and then you tried to find kids wherever else they could go. And now it's really interesting because people recruit off other campuses so much now.
Right.
I'm as curious as you guys are to see how it plays out.
I already felt like with the transfer portal, the big schools are probably just picking up, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th years from other schools. So now with this, like, you better be real good in high school if you're going to go to one of those big schools. And I don't know if it happens with you guys, but like a lot of our kids, it's just like dialing back, like everybody is a fan of either like WSU or the UW, right? And it's like,
Yep.
okay, great, and maybe one day, but not like that doesn't need to be our first stop. And
Right.
sometimes we have kids that you don't want to tell them, but it's like, bud, like you're an offensive line. If you're not 6'5", they're not coming calling. You don't even meet the minimum. I don't care how good you are. So like trying to like without hurting feelings, dialing back like, this might not be the school for you.
Yeah, or it might not be your next step at least.
Yeah,
Right, like
maybe
there might be a
maybe you
step
do
in
go
between.
and bloom, But
Well,
you're
and I also
5'9".
I also think you find out how much kids love to play ball, not necessarily based upon the level. So, do you really love to play football if you don't get the glitz and the glamour that the University of Washington throws at you? Can you go to middle nowhere state in Iowa and play? Because I really do believe if a kid really wants to play, we can find him a place wherever it is, within reason. But if they really love to play, and that goes across the board in a lot of sports too, but it might not be at the place you want to go,
Right.
and the glitz and the glamour that you think, but it really cuts it down to find out, does a kid really love to play ball to go to that next level?
Yeah, and you see it sometimes. I had a buddy who played professional basketball, but it wasn't in the NBA. It was some semi-pro league. I mean, he made some money doing it and everything, but he did it because he loved it and he just wanted to keep playing.
Which is awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
that's our ultimate goal, to have kids get life experiences through sport, and it makes it really fun.
Yeah, after getting out of the Army, I don't know if they're still around, but there was a semi-pro football league. There was like, I think they were called the South Sound Shockers.
Okay.
And I went to a practice, and I was like, maybe I was still in pretty good shape. And I went, and it was just this brutal, just barely any coaching, just practice. And I was like, what is going on? And I talked to one guy, he's just massive man playing linebacker, and he's like, he just had failed out of like USC. Like his grades were atrocious, but he was playing like linebacker at USC, and he was on this team, and I was like, all right. I thought it was going to be other like just dudes like me. I didn't realize it was going to be this guy just headhunting. He was just wrecking everybody. I was like, I don't have health insurance. Like, I can't do this crap. It was crazy.
He had a little axe to grind.
He was just-
At some point, I'm going to go to work and do this.
and so I got into coaching. Like I just started coaching instead.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long were you at Feather River?
So we were there for 5 years, and then Coach Zamberlin took the Idaho State job. And so he called, on a January morning and said, "Can you be here in 3 or 4 days?" And so just like that, we were gone and headed to Pocatello, Idaho for 4 seasons, 4 illustrious seasons. And reality kind of set in at the end of that. But again, wouldn't trade that experience for the world, even though we weren't as successful on the field. And I really learned that the business piece of college athletics and the harsh reality of it, and it kind of transformed where my career headed after that. We were released after 4 years for not winning enough games, and coach got released, and then the new head coach came on, and he offered me a job on the academic staff there, but I still wanted to coach, and I didn't want to sit around. It was a guy I had previously worked for and a great guy, but I didn't want to sit around and watch everybody get badmouth that I had worked with and worked for, as happens when new coaches come through. And so I declined, and we'll probably get into, where we ended up after that. But Pocatello was, we got to meet some great people and coach with some people, and I learned a ton. I had gone from being on the offensive side of the ball most of my coaching career, and all of a sudden I'm coaching safeties and defensive backs, and it was really good. It made me really learn, made me really get out of my comfort zone, and we learned a lot of things there, and got to meet a lot of great people.
Yeah, just a little sidebar, but getting out of your comfort zone is an amazing thing for personal growth. Like, you don't realize how much it's going to change the way you look at stuff, or even probably the way that you coach, right?
Oh, no question. And I was lucky enough. We had a corners coach. I was the DB coach or the safeties coach to start with, and then ended up coaching all the defensive backs towards the end. But just opening and looking at things from a different side of the ball, how to look at things. I primarily coached running backs and skill guys before that. So I was still coaching skill guys, but just from a different aspect, technique. And it gave me a nice broad scope of the game too. And eventually helped me become a pretty good head coach because of learning all that but getting thrown into coaching the defensive backs at the Division I level we scrambled and learned and went and met with people and learned a lot. I got the nice fortune of going to Tuscaloosa for 5 days and meeting with their defensive staff at Alabama based upon a guy I had known at Eastern. And so got to watch Coach Saban's stuff and learn a lot from a 5-day trip to Tuscaloosa as well too. And so it was a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So that 5-day trip was Coach's Clinic?
No, it was I had worked with Coach McElwain, and he was the offensive coordinator there, and so I went down and stayed at his house and had open access not open access. Nobody has any open access to Alabama. There was always a guy with me the whole time I was down there, and
making sure you don't walk away with state secrets.
No, you got the tape. They showed you the tape, and they were there to answer any questions, but they were great, and so you learned a lot of stuff. And so
did you just try to, like, on the 6th day just stay there and sit?
No,
I'm like, no, Saban, he said I was on, don't worry about it.
No, they were really good, and you learned a lot, and you saw how attention to detail they were and picked up stuff. And so it was good. It was really good. And when I was at Idaho State, we brought in for a year Coach Cullen he was with, I think, the Detroit Lions the year before, and they had gotten let go. And so he came in and really learned a ton about attention to detail from him. I have still in my garage stacks and stacks of notes of him putting in a defense. And then he's now with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he jumped right back into the NFL. We had him for a year, but he and Coach Zamberlin had worked together back east. And so he came in, but boy, I learned all about a defense and how to put it in and how to teach it and just how attention to detail you had to be. And so it didn't pay off for us at Idaho State, but it did pay off down the road, all the lessons learned, and a great friend of mine now.
Yeah. Have you often gone to observe other programs?
Almost every chance you can get. And I think, you pick something up every time. Over the time period, spring breaks, last spring break, my son and I went down to the University of Texas, and Pete Kwiatkowski, their defensive coordinator down there, I had known when he was at Eastern, and Eastern tie there. He got us on the field, and so we got to watch them practice. And you always picked up time. I think Josh, I talked about that at that tackling clinic. We picked up a couple new tackling drills down there, and we've gone down to the University of Oregon. Have a good tie there, and Portland State. And yeah, anytime you can go watch stuff, I think it's just awesome. You might not get everything, but if you can pick one or two things out that resonates to your program or you can install, then it becomes really worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, that's been kind of a recurring theme of people, needing to get up and go somewhere to learn how to do something,
Well, and I think that's really interesting because, and how coaching and how things have changed. Nowadays we can Google something, right? And so people can get access. There's so much access to, like when I started in 93 over at Eastern, it was still a VCR. You put a tape in, you put another tape in, you cut, you sliced, you did tape that way. Now you can punch up 100 ways to run power, and 100 ways to give me routes. Our kids now come up with routes because of the Madden game they play. And I'm like, that's okay. That's awesome. But that's not really in reality how this thing can work. So here's why don't we run this? This is really cool. And I said, well, and it looks good on TV, but we're not pros, and it doesn't always relate to things that you could do in a high school football game.
Yeah.
8 seconds of protection in the pocket.
Yeah, right. Pat the ball 100 times, and yeah.
Not everybody cuts like Mercury Morris.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, you pick things up, and I think that's always tried to stay up front, but still not go get so many ideas. You still have to have your foundation
Right.
of what you're doing and not just be a hodgepodge operation.
Yeah, yeah. Some focus, some vision, some goal.
Yeah, just like you said, what I was always taught, like every clinic, every visit, if you could bring back one or two things to add, that's probably the appropriate amount. Like you probably shouldn't go there and be like, we're changing defenses. Look how good that was. Like that probably wasn't what you were supposed to go do, but I guess sometimes that could happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the cool thing is, like our offense will, we meet Saturday, then we'd meet Sunday again, and they'd go home and watch college football, and guys would come in and shoot. That whiteboard is all chalked up of new stuff they saw people do. But yeah, that's Jalen Hurts doing it, guys. We don't have Jalen Hurts or one of these guys that can do that. And so what can we do in our system to add a new wrinkle or something?
Sometimes as a D-line coach, sometimes I would get that as some adjustments would come in and we would look at some film of like we're going to stunt the front this way. It's like, that's awesome. But like, I don't have like my backside in there runs a 5.3. Like you're looking at someone that runs a 4.8, man. Like I'm never getting across the center. That's like, let's think about what the hell we have before.
I can't bring the backside 3 technique all the way across and keep contained. Yeah, for sure.
Loop around the other side.
No question. But you learned a lot, and that was one of the coolest things about the journey. We've got to stay in touch with a lot of people, and they'll get me in places because of knowing them and knowing the job, and always being a good person to people as well too.
Yeah, so just as important as the relationship with the kids is the relationship with the other coaches, right? Like you got to maintain it, got to work it, got to keep in touch.
Oh, and one of my, I don't know that I sent it to you guys, but one of my other philosophies is never burn a bridge. Don't. Yeah. And we kind of talked about that, Josh, before we went on air. Never burn a bridge. People are in this thing for the right reason for the most part, and the football world's really a small world. When you really break it down, there's only a few of us that kind of have been, we're connected, and that's if you be a good person, you don't burn a bridge, and staying connected with people, and even just reaching out and just saying hi and trying to text guys after a big win, or saying hi after a big loss, or when a guy gets released, just being there for him and talking to him. I mean, we had what led us back into high school football was I'm sitting on my patio or deck in Pocatello, Idaho, and we have a job offer at Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee, and we have a job offer in Dickinson State, North Dakota, and we've got the Centralia High School job, head football job back here where we're from, and I called and talked to Jim McElwain, and he's at the University of Alabama at the time, who I had worked for at Eastern, and he said, Steve, he goes, if you go take that high school job, go back into high school, if you don't like it, give us a call, and we'll get you back involved in college football. But he goes, I really think, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to go back close to home. Your kids are going to get to see their grandparents, and you might really like it. And I made another call to Steve Kaiser, who had left the college game and was at Skyview High School in Vancouver. And he said, Steve, other than the bells, you're really going to like it. And so we took a chance and went to Centralia and were there for 2 years, back, 28 miles from where I grew up. And so both sets of our parents got to see our grandkids, and then we came down to Kelso after 2 years in Centralia and have been here ever since. So
that move to Centralia must have been a little, that was also been right after the credit crash, right? So it would have been, a lot of instability for school funding and housing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When we went to Centralia, we had came in, we had gotten fired at Idaho State. The business reality of stuff. My wife was still teaching at a high school over there. And I was out of a job for a while until we got that job. So it seemed pretty stable at the time when we were there. We had one really good year. We followed a legend in John Schultz, and I learned another really, really big thing. I came in and changed the offense, and I was going to do it my way, and just because they had done that. And if I look back, I wouldn't have changed stuff as much as I would, because those kids had already known it. We ended up doing just fine the first year at Centralia, and then the second year we didn't win a football game, and I was like, well, this can't be me. But you looked back, and there was a lot of things that we could have done, and I think learning and growing from that experience, when I moved down to Kelso, who was another steeped place in tradition, I didn't just come in and change everything at all. I learned from what had happened at Centralia. So,
well, especially like moving into like Centralia, there's a lot of, we're from Shelton. There's a lot of parallels between Centralia and Shelton, and like just because, and Centralia, correct me if I'm wrong, but was pretty successful. They won state probably only a few years before you guys got there, if I remember.
Well, they had won the state championship a long time ago. They had a really good tailback named Jay Roberts, and they were really good. But they had a pretty good run. They had played Prosser in the semifinals a couple of years before, and I think got beat to a guy named Kellen Moore. I'm not sure, but
he was all right.
But then so and we had some great kids there. We had a really good first year there, and then the second year we just. Boy, we couldn't do anything right.
Yeah,
so.
But like that community, winning is part of it, but the community knows what their football is supposed to look like and it's supposed to feel like. And if you mess with that, even with winning, like you might be on the way out because it's not their brand, like.
Yep.
Shelton football is Shelton football. Centralia football is Centralia football. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I definitely learned that when I came down here, and obviously did a way better job down here transitioning in. And that was the first time I'd ever been a head coach. I'd coached a lot of football at a lot of different levels in a lot of different places, but being a head coach was completely different.
Yeah.
Turns out that's pretty tough.
Yeah, it is.
So was that the big takeaway from Centralia, was like you tried to do too many changes? So was that what you feel like you learned from it?
Well, I thought it was really interesting. We ran into the first year was awesome. Like I said, we had a really good group, and then a little bit, but also we just ran into an interesting group. It was, we just couldn't get a complete buy-in to some football stuff for a reason. We had some kids that were really into it, but not enough to compete with the Tumwaters, and WF West was and still is rolling, and just a lot of stuff, and kind of a perfect storm to not win a game. But when you look back and you go, we didn't win a game. Is it coaching? Is it playing? There's a lot of different avenues, and we lucked out. I ended up getting a great job down here after coming off a losing season. So I was pretty lucky that my reputation had preceded myself, not just that last season, that I got a way better job and after a really rough year.
Well, I know when Josh took over, he was head coach last year for Shelton, and when he took over, he went and looked up all of his idols to see how their first year coaching went. And what was the report back that you found?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think if I had won one game, I was the most successful out of all those.
Yeah, their first years across the board had been a train wreck as a head coach.
I won two.
Oh yeah, you won two.
Well, it's definitely not easy, but you learn and grow, and you got to have great people around you. I mean, that's you're only as good as your assistants and the kids that buy in and everything, and then and that's just to have a chance. We talk about that. We have to do everything right just to have a chance, and then you're still playing a game with a oblong ball that bounces really weird ways, and so you can be in perfect spots and something goofy happens every time. That's why
we played Steve our last game, and our last regular season game. We played one more after that, and I just remember it's my favorite story to tell people of when you're talking about being prepared and but sometimes it doesn't matter how prepared or how good your guys are doing comparatively. Sometimes you just step on a field and the people across from it's going to be a tough night. And I just remember sitting there and, head coaching before a game sometimes is really busy, and sometimes it's just a quiet. And I was watching the Kelso quarterbacks throw routes. It's just routes on air, and they were running like a corner route and then like maybe a fade up the sideline, and they did not drop a ball. I watched 10 minutes and I did not see a ball hit the ground. I was like, man, it was beautiful. It was like watching ballet. And I'm not joking you, at that end of that 10-minute period, I looked over and our routes on air was starting, and our first receiver did a slant and it hit him in the face. And the next guy hit him flat hands, and I was just like, oh baby. Like, and that's about how that night went.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's funny to go out there and it's like, man, sometimes you try your best and the best isn't it. But that's sports, right? Like,
Yeah.
just because you tried really hard, and that's some, like when people say like, if you try, like you can make everything happen. You just got to try hard enough. And it's like, I actually don't like that advice. Like, sometimes you're going to try really hard and that shit's not going to work. And you got to enjoy the fact that you tried your hardest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, sometimes the only way it will happen is if you try your hardest, right? Like, it's not bad advice to try your hardest, but
yes,
yeah.
But the delusion that just because you tried real hard, it will happen for you. You know, we're trying real hard to make this work. Doesn't mean it's gonna work just because we tried.
Well, that's the funny thing is kids, you know, and how do you handle failure too? You know, how do you handle when something doesn't go your way and they've done everything you've asked? Well, you got to remember that coaching staff on the other side met, they watched huddle, those kids practice, those kids are caring and trying. That's why a lot of times there's nothing really pretty about sport. Sport is a grueling test of wills, test of ability, test of a lot of things. And I think that's what makes it so exciting and being around. You'd never really know. I mean, we know the outcome if, you know, we have a pretty good idea what the outcome could be sometimes based upon matchups, but that's what makes it intriguing. And that's why I think the NFL is one of the highest watched sporting deals, and college football and college basketball, and everything's so popular because it's theater, but we don't know the outcome. And so that's what makes sports exciting.
And I really think that most of the best life lessons come out of the losses. You know, like I can't tell. We talk about this too. Our proximity to Tumwater is a very good perennial powerhouse. Like, we actually wonder sometimes, like, is that regular season for the kids and coaches boring? Like, do they get? Is it dull? Because they just dominate. None of those games are ever close. You know, like, do you lose some of the lessons that a season could teach just because they're so dominant? You know,
well,
I don't know the answer to that.
I also think, you know, I think that's sometimes what separates great teams. And I learned that at a young age, or young in my coaching philosophy. Don't just let the results judge whether we did it right or wrong, you know, because everybody feels good. You'll win regardless, you know, but am I coaching as hard? You know, am I being critical? Am I attention to detail? Your meetings on Sunday, to me, should be the same whether we won or lost. Is this kid doing it right? Are we? Because human nature is, if, okay, we won, we got the result we wanted, but okay, so maybe he didn't step correctly,
right,
or do this or do that. To be critical when you win or have success is just as important as to be critical when you don't. I mean, my dad always liked, never get too high after a win and never get too low after a loss. If you can stay somewhere on that medium bar, you're going to have a chance to continue to be successful. So.
Yeah. Don't want to. We often talk about when it's appropriate to be passionate and dispassionate in your sport, right? And not getting so out of it that you quit moving forward, right? Like, you got to have a level of dispassion that you can actually think about what you're doing and try to be better the next day, the next hour, right?
Yeah, as an athlete, having the delusion that you won by 60, so you must be doing everything right.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably a bad. And as a coach as well, like, going back and thinking like, oh, we had 8 sacks. My D-line is just awesome. Like, or they just could physically beat the kids that were in front of them.
Yeah.
And they were doing nothing right.
Well, right. And I mean, we got that, you know, a couple times you play O'Day, and you know, you got 8 guys in position to tackle the guy, and you can't get him tackled. And then he breaks it. Myles Gaskin breaks it for 90 yards. Well, then a year later, my defensive coordinator calls me on a Thursday night and he goes, Steve, I don't feel so bad. Gaskin just did that to the University of Oregon
Right. Yeah.
as well too. And so you're like, it kind of puts stuff in perspective too, that, hey guys, we're right here. We're doing everything right. That guy's just better than us. Sorry. To tip your cap and move along. And it's frustrating, but that's sport too. There's different levels for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can you tell us about your 10, 12 years at Kelso?
Yeah, you know what? Talk about a great, absolute great spot that this school is unique and has support, and two legendary coaches before me. Coach Lalainen was here for 25 years, won a state championship in '83, and then Coach Himes was here for 16 years, and then I just finished my 12th year here and obviously stepped down, but we went to the playoffs every year here. Which I'm super, super proud of. We're unique, and we kind of sit on I-5. We're a single high school town that really, if you're driving up I-5, you see the stadium, and it's really cool, and it's painted in tradition. Our kids wear old school blue blazers to school on Friday. The fight song, the band, the pep, and Josh got to see it when they came down here. It's an event. And yeah, the pressure is to make sure that this event, it's not just for the players, but the whole event's what people look forward to on a Friday night. And as a coach, you want to make sure that our kids do a good job and put out that great product. And people are really happy with you if they play hard and compete. They obviously want to win, and we lucked out. We won way more than we got beat here, but it was a great run. I got to coach my son. We got to go to the playoffs 12 times, got to coach 3 different groups of, 4-year generation kids. And so it was awesome. And I also got a huge piece of advice from Coach Himes. And I think a nugget that any coach can take. And we also started our year with this might be my 32nd or 33rd year of coaching football. It might be the staff's 25th or 30th, but it's this kid's only senior year, and these kids only get 4 years or 1 season. So we have to pour everything we can in to make this year special for those kids, because a lot of them are never going to get another year. And so we have to do everything to give them the great experience that they got. And so just very supportive group of people here at Kelso.
So this is probably a unique bit of advice for people, but I would be one of those people, so I'm going to ask it anyways. That's why we have the conversations. As a coach that just coached his own son, so my kid's about to be a freshman, and that's always been a relationship that's made me very nervous, of like separating. Like I always, as a coach, I always tell parents, like, you be the parent, I'll be the coach, because as soon as you're the coach, I'm the parent.
Right.
And you should be better at that, and I should be better at this. So I'm always nervous of doing too much coaching. Like I probably, I don't know, undercoach my kids so that I'm always in the parent role. Was there any times where you, like, what would you tell for a coach, like when their kids were, did you step on any landmines, or did you do it really well, or?
You know what? I felt like we had a great relationship. And a lot of it, Tuck had been around us obviously for forever. And I was fortunate enough, I got to play for my dad and my uncle. And so that was a unique experience in itself. But having Tucker, he started as a sophomore here with a really senior laden group. And so I was a little nervous going into his sophomore year because we had a ton of pieces coming back, and we were going to be really, really good. But he was going to be our quarterback, and we had 2 guys, and he clearly beats the other guy out. And I went into it with a really open mind, almost going to probably more give it to the other guy.
Right. Yeah.
But he had worked hard and proved himself, and so we go down and beat Evergreen in overtime to win the first league championship here since 2003 with him as a sophomore. And so he got to be around a group of kids that, 2 years before, he's their ball boy. And now every eye in the huddle is looking at him. And he had a really good, calm demeanor. And then 2 years ago, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the story. One of the scariest things we ever dealt with. We played Mountain View on a Friday and got beat by 1 point. We had gone for two. I got goofy and went for two, and we didn't get it to lose the game at home, homecoming, blah blah blah. And Tuesday at practice, we're out on the field, and one of the kids comes up to Tucker and goes, "God, your arm, it looks like it's on steroids." And I look over at it and I tap it, and this is like game 7, and I go, what's? We get him to the trainer. Well, the next thing we're down at Randall's Children's Hospital in Portland that night. He's got a blood clot in his arm, and it had all got it into his lungs and everything. And he had a Paget Thoro syndrome, where his clavicle and his upper rib were pushed together, that caused a blood clot from throwing and lifting and overuse a little bit, and just weird. The same thing that the Notre Dame quarterback had. So they pulled his upper rib out in a surgery that we didn't know. And so it really, Josh, put things, we didn't know if he was going to get a play. We didn't know if he was going to live.
Right.
Things really got put into perspective for me. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know if I was going to come back and coach again that next year. But when he went through all that and decided he could play and wanted to play again, I was like, I'm definitely coaching him. And our relationship, I just, the good Lord took care of us. Tucker runs our FCA here and does a lot of stuff. And I was like, the good Lord took care of us. And if he worked his butt off that much, I'm going to be here for his senior year and coach him and his group. And he came back and had a great year. And it was a wild time at our house that to keep him going. And so I wanted to be there. I was, you're hard on him, but you're also, we have a really good relationship. And a lot of it was because of all the stuff we went through. It put stuff in perspective.
Yeah, that's a really difficult thing to go through. Anytime your kid's got some kind of major health thing going on, it's very, very, very upsetting.
Yeah, we were trying to coach the team, be at the hospital. I was so lucky we had great assistants that helped, and we ended up winning the last game and went into a tiebreaker and got to go to the playoffs. And he got to come out of the hospital, and he came out more healthy than ever. And so, just being there for your kid and not putting too much pressure on them, but also, what, they are your kid, and make sure it's special too, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah. My youngest boy had some health issues when he was young, and it was like a birth to 18 months. We finally got it figured out when he was like 18 months old, but there was times where he'd just be inconsolable, and you'd have no idea what was going on. You take him to the doctor, and they're like, we don't know, And it ended up being he inherited my chronic migraines, and he just got them as an infant. And so, it wasn't anything that was lethal or anything, but it was a huge disruption to everybody's quality of life because he couldn't sleep at night and, every other thing, right? But it's pretty horrifying when you've got your screaming child in the back of the van and you're, booking it into the children's hospital or whatever. And then you get there and they're like, well, we don't know.
Right.
One of the coolest things that came out of that whole situation was you realize your value and your support from the school and the community you work at. And this place was just incredible, from our superintendent down to anybody, you saw at the supermarket. They were, how's Tucker? How's he going to be? And everybody was, just really supportive of us. And so it makes you, dive in even more and want to do right for the community and do right for the school because of how supportive people are.
Yeah.
So, we do the Monroe's random ask question every day. And I don't know if you've thought about this, or maybe you've been able to work a better balance, but so I started coaching a decade ago, and rarely, sure, football season is football season, but football season is also summer. And then you got to get ready for spring ball, and that starts in January. And really, you're just recovering, and you're not going to go on vacation right before Christmas. So really, there's not a whole lot. Is there anything you're excited about and I know part of it is watching your kids play sports. Like, do you have anything in your head like, man, I've really wanted to do this for a long time, but it just happens to be in football season every year? Like, is there anything you're really excited to go do
Well,
that you haven't been able to do?
this is probably sick, but I'll probably go watch more college football games and just enjoy a Saturday of being able to watch games and watch Sundays and go up to the U or go down. And we have 5 kids playing now. I want to get up and go watch a PLU game with one of our kids playing up there. I want to watch a Whitworth game. My daughter's playing volleyball. I can go, and you guys will both appreciate this, I can go watch her play and be mentally there and not have my wife go, what are you thinking about? What do you ask you a question and you're like, what, you're just being mentally present for them, because you're right. I mean, we'll be on vacation.
You don't got to think about how you're going to stop Mountain View's DNs. Like,
right. Yeah. Or, where are we getting pizzas from after the game? Or, Johnny left his bag in the locker. Can you get to school in time to get him his bag before you go to your class that you're teaching? I mean, just, it never, like you said, Josh, it never stops. You'd be, we always try to get away as a family, go to Hawaii or go to San Diego or go something. But even then you're still not, the phone's ringing, the things are coming, you're getting told, people are asking questions. And so you're never really off as a head coach. And right now I kind of feel the weight off my shoulders a little bit, because to do it right, and I only know how to do it one way, is that you're completely all in. And that's, it's a rewarding, heavy, fun load, but I'm excited. We just hired Darren Gardner, who was my offensive coordinator, to be the next head coach here. He's been on the staff for the last 20 years here. And so I'm super excited to be his biggest fan. But just to go watch games and, pick a weekend and go down and watch a college football game and just relax a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So this year, stepping down as the head coach, I would like to, with this launching, like, the plan is to take a year off just for that integration of the new coach. Like, I could definitely see there being, with me still there, kind of holding the old guard while he's coming in. Like, now that's the plan. I've said this before, and then come May, I'm like, dude, I need some football. But I just love coaching. So, but one big thing is last year, my wife's family goes and does elk camp every year. They're over there for weeks. And we were able to go last year. I left Saturday morning after a game and was back before the Monday. So it was like 2 days all the way to Yakima and back. And it was like, man, I would love to be there for a whole week, like with the kids and the family. And it's just such a great environment. And you're just out in the woods and phones don't work. And like, it's like, man, if I'm not coaching, we're definitely going. I'm pulling the kids out for a week, and we're going to do that.
Well, you'll have a blast doing that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I know you're ready. You just bought an RV. So.
Yeah, my dumb ass just bought an RV. So yeah, we want to do all kinds of stuff. Anytime we got a free weekend, we want to get out and see the country, or a week or whatever. So we're hoping when it gets delivered before spring break, we want to do the 101 loop, which if you're not from the Pacific Northwest, you should know that we have the most beautiful summers in the world. And so, I'm real excited about it.
No, we're excited about spending Saturday and Sunday being able to go outside too, as opposed to being in front of a huddle camera and all that stuff and watching tape and worrying about some stuff. So it'll be good. It'll be new. I've also talked about maybe sneaking over to the middle school right across our street and helping out, but not having the summer obligations and not having the weekend obligations as well. And we'll see how we adjust to it,
I've done almost all my coaching for free. Like I really like being able to just walk away when it's not feeling right,
I don't blame you. Well, that's why you have more hair than Josh and I do.
Listen, that's another thing we're thinking about. It's like, Kyle said, you don't get paid much as a coach, but then when you start doing I am going to get paid less.
Yeah.
Like, can I financially pull this off? Like, when I see Coach Monroe back
right away.
After all. But that's what Ron McKeefery had said. Now, it's easier said than done. He was like, you need to get yourself in a situation there where you can coach for free. Do
Right.
things outside of coaching that support you so that when it's not the right situation, you have the ability to say no.
Well, and that's the exciting thing
That's
about,
great advice.
we're still going to have a great impact on kids. I'm an assistant baseball coach here. I teach PE. I talk to kids. You're around it. I care about our kids, and I'm so happy we got the right guy in to be the next head coach. We're going to still be hopefully a big figure in the school, just in a different role now. And so, step back and let Darren run with this thing and do a great job. But, I'm going to be teaching and being around kids all the time. And so I'm excited about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think after your kids get a little older that you might be making the return?
You never know. I've always thought, maybe you come back after a few years and help out, like Josh said, new guy gets established and maybe he needs a freshman coach, maybe, or we might just find that, what, there is life out there after this stuff and like that as well too. So yeah, I think we've learned, if we've learned anything, Kyle, you never say never, but
And
that's
so
what it is right now.
where's your kid coaching?
Well, Tucker's gonna try to. He's going to Utah State to go into the aviation program. He wants to be a pilot,
Okay.
and then we're gonna try and get him on somehow with the football staff to help out, as a student assistant or a manager of some sort, because he wants to keep his toes involved in football too. And then we have a daughter that will be on the varsity volleyball and basketball team next year here at Kelso, so we'll be plenty busy. And my wife teaches at the high school as well too.
Yeah, your kid's gonna fall in love with it. He's gonna go up the ladder, and eventually he's gonna be the head coach somewhere. And you're gonna be nice and retired, and he's gonna go, Dad, I'm an offensive
I've
coordinator."
told him I'm excited for him to go be a pilot. We've watched every level of coaching, but and then been around it, and I'm excited. I hope he enjoys being a pilot, and he has that love. He has a pretty good balance in life, way better balance in life than I do.
All right. Well,
I've not met many balanced coaches.
Yeah,
That
no,
is
there's
true.
not.
Like, that's not a big factor.
yeah, I mean, I think having that like all or nothing, like all in or all out mentality, like my wife likes that I do a lot of stuff. I don't know that she loves that I do a lot of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that you want a balanced coach. Like, Coach, how are we gonna do? Like, well, I haven't really looked at it. I went on a hike and
Yeah.
and reading books and
Who do we play this week? What?
All right, well, I feel like we got lots of great coach advice, so I got two more questions for you at least before we get out of here. At least two more. One is, what's your advice? What should kids bring to the field when they show up for their sport? Like, if you were given a round of advice to everybody who's just fallen in love with something right now, what would you tell them to bring when they come to practice?
You know what, the slogan that we always liked and I stole from Tom Coughlin a long time ago, but it's be where your feet are. Just be present and give everything you have to what you're doing right now. And I think that's one of the beauties of sport is it gives us a chance to let everything in the outside world go. If things aren't good at home or things that weren't good in school or things are bad in a relationship or something, when we cross that line or walk into that locker room, it is a chance to release and just be present and give everything you have for that 2.5 hours or 2 hours to your sport, to your craft, to getting better, to enjoying it, to enjoy being around the people that you get to play with. And I think that's something brings us there, right? I mean, when a kid, there's something that gets him there. You don't just walk out to do that. We choose to. And so why not give it everything you have or enjoy it because you showed up and you came to do it. So being present and being where your feet are, I think is, the biggest piece of advice I can give to kids.
Yeah, I think that's great advice your whole life because so often it's easy to work yourself in the point where like you're working too much and your job is not rewarding and you aren't spending enough time with your family and friends and you aren't taking good care of yourself and it's because you're chasing something that isn't real, right? So like if you would show up to work and make your work count and then show up at home and be at home and take care of yourself when you're taking care of yourself. Like, that's how your life actually gets better. Where ruminating about what's going on never actually, moves you forward.
Right. And bitching about what happened in the past, or
Hmm.
bitching and complaining, what can you do about it? I mean, what gets solved with us complain? Yeah, I wish I had another guy. I wish I had this. I wish I had that, but I don't. So what can I do with what we have?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, another one of my favorites, like kind of along that same line, is like, how do you climb a mountain? Like, put one foot in front of the other. Like it's just, it's what you do. You move, right?
and it seems so simple, but it's so hard for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Well, as coaches, and we've said it already tons of times, is like trying to convince kids to enjoy the process, or you got to enjoy being a high school football player if you're going to go. You got to love it. But then as adults, like, we tell people to enjoy the process, but then we don't sit down and enjoy the process of life. Especially, I feel like, as a teacher, now me and my wife are both teachers, we get in the cycle of, it's football season, and then we're about to be in Christmas, and then it's
Yep.
the time before spring break, and then it's before summer, and it's almost like one after another of waiting for the next thing to happen. And then all of a sudden it was 4 years, and it's like, holy crap, our kids are 10 and 14 now,
Yeah.
almost. And it's like, dude, that's a dangerous little cycle
Uh-huh.
to watch. It's like, we probably should be more present, and we've tried to now really slow it down, especially over the last couple of months, really. Like, every day we should probably be doing something together to enjoy that we're together today.
Yeah.
Not wait for the next big thing to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we bought that awful RV.
Now it's got a dental chair.
It does. It was a mobile medical clinic, so there's no bed in it. We gotta take the mobile medical chair out and put a bed in. I'm excited about it.
Listen, it's brilliant. That was a brilliant thing. It's
Yeah.
much cheaper.
Yeah.
Like, how hard is it to put a bed in something?
Yeah, it saved me 20 grand. Yeah, so okay, last question. That I got pre-prepped. In my coaching career, I've seen a wide variety, or athletic career, really more of the athletic career than the coaching career. I've been pretty insulated as a weight room guy. The parents don't come in the weight room very often, but like when I was still doing sport and stuff, wide variety of approaches from parents. If you had to give advice to parents about how to support their student athlete, their developing human being, what's your go-to advice for parents who love sport?
Be there and give kids the opportunity, and then be supportive, and not, because a kid comes home from practice or comes home from a game, pick the kid up, be there, be supportive, find something positive about what happened. Because, a kid knows if he messed up playing or didn't have a good game, he doesn't need mom or dad to tell him that. But being supportive of coaches, because if a kid comes home and his coach had got on him or something, or the kid might really like his coach too, and the parent comes home and, rips the coach, it really puts a kid in conflict too. So just being supportive and trusting that the administration's hired good coaches that have your kids' best interest in the forefront, and also understanding that that coach has 90 kids he's working with, where the parent has one, and you get it. I've opened up any conversation I ever have with a parent with, I get it. I'm not telling you how to parent. I'm not, and I don't know how you're feeling because I'm not in your situation, but please trust us. I'm looking out for the best of the 90 kids, and in that I'm looking out for your kid as well too. But I have to make decisions based on the greater good, not just one kid. And even when my kid was playing, and so you just being supportive, give your kids every opportunity. You know what? Get them to bed, feed them, get them to practice, get them to places to give them a chance to be successful, and let them know you care about them and you're there to support them.
Yeah.
Yeah. My big thing is just understand, like, you've definitely met more coaches than me, but I've met a lot of coaches. And yet, have I met one that is trying to lose the game or that lets a small difference between him and your kid oh, your kid's the best on the team, but I'm going to sit him.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, if they're
Yeah.
sitting, like, I promise you, if he's the best one for the job, his butt's on the field. Like,
No
put
question.
up with a lot of crap to get those good kids on the field. Like,
Yeah.
I promise
No,
you, like, he's on the sideline. There's a reason
Yeah.
other than
For
we're
sure.
just mad at your child.
Yeah.
But I'm not a coach. I'm a parent. I'll say that now. A little harder to tell a parent that when you're the head coach, but
Yeah. True. True.
Yeah, it's almost every coach has had almost identical advice, different shade of the same thing, right? Be there to support your kid, support,
Be a parent.
support, be a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Lift them up. Yeah.
Lift them up, and then also make sure you're disciplining them at home, and making sure that they can be there is really important nowadays too.
Yeah.
yeah. What was it, episode 9? Spencer Arnold.
Yeah.
He's an Olympic weightlifting coach, and he just said, and he's the strength coach at Hebron Christian out of Georgia, very successful program, and he just said, like, parents just should always just assume your kid is wrong, like assume that they did it. Just go into the meeting thinking that, and I was like, God, that's the greatest. I want that as a shirt. Wear it to conferences. It's like, your kid's probably wrong. Like, it's just
And
the best.
I had a deal, as a coach, I hadn't looked at it the right way, and I got an email from a parent, and I read the email before I responded to it, and the first thing I did when I called the parent back, I said, "Do you know your kid is one of my favorite kids?" And it kind of put the parent back on their heels, like, "Oh." I said, "I talk to him every morning when I walk into the school and walk into the weight room," and they're like, "Oh." And I said, you brought up a lot of great points, and hopefully I can learn from that as a coach too. I hadn't looked at it through that deal, and we had a great conversation about it. And I don't know, it didn't rectify what had happened, but it also, we both left feeling better about a tough situation. So
Yeah, and that's a good point of, like, not understanding if you only take a snippet. So that happened this year to me, is a kid that I've given years of advice to. We have a good relationship, and they're an up and coming kid, really working hard. But if you just took one little snippet, it might seem like I'm being incredibly hard on them.
right.
But that's because we're 3 years into a relationship, and I'm being incredibly hard on them. But
Yep.
that's where we're at as a coach athlete relationship. But then all of a sudden that got pulled out. It's like, sure, that looks harsh, but yeah, me and that person's conversation did not go that well. I was still learning. I learned that there needs to be like a secretary of, like, parent to Monroe buffer.
You need a
I've coached powerlifting for so long, and I was the D-line coach. No one cares about the strength coach. They always like, hey, good job. Like, the D-line, no one can tell if the D-line's doing bad. And then, like, powerlifting, other than the parents that come and watch, like, everybody's just like, hey, you guys seem to be good.
well, and almost 100% of the kids that came out for powerlifting came out because they liked us.
Right.
Like, it was just they already got along with us, and they were like, hey, yeah, we'll come hang out with Monroe and Cofield. Why not?
Yeah, if we didn't get along, they probably weren't on the powerlifting team.
Yeah.
But
Yes, that's definitely not easy. Powerlifting is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm
that was a great conversation.
yeah. Really
I
appreciate
appreciate it, guys, and it's always fun to talk people about like stuff. And thank you guys, and best of luck with the podcast.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate
Thank
it.